You're not tired because you work too hard. You're tired because something inside you is bleeding out quietly. And no one ever told you where the wound is. Not your parents. Not your teachers. Not even your so-called friends. But you feel it. Like a fog in your chest. Like you're dragging a weight through life, and no one else sees the chains. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." You're tired because you've been running from yourself. And it's killing you. You wake up already drained. Not because your body is broken, but because your identity is. You play a role every day, the good employee, the strong friend, the one who's figuring it out. But somewhere deep, a voice whispers, "This isn't who I really am." And that voice, you've silenced it for years. You numbed it with routine. But now, it's screaming through your exhaustion. You were told to be normal, to get good grades, be nice, fit in, smile. But let me ask you, who were you before the world told you who to be? Before the mask, before the compromises, before you became a ghost in your own life? Jung believed the psyche splits. There is who you are on the surface, the persona, and then, buried deep beneath the mask, lies the shadow, everything you were told to hide, your rage, your lust, your ambition, your wild, dangerous truth. The reason you're tired is because that shadow is fighting to break free. And you are wasting every ounce of energy suppressing it. Imagine locking a wolf in a cage for years. It snarls, it claws, it dreams of the hunt. And every day you wake up and tighten the lock, just to survive another day at the office, another fake conversation, another performance. But the wolf is still there, and the longer you keep it chained, the more exhausted you become. You were trained to hate your instincts. To flinch at your power. To bow to mediocrity. Because a fully alive human, someone who is dangerous, conscious, and unafraid, is a threat to the system. No one profits off the awakened. They profit off the broken, the obedient, the tired. And here's the forbidden truth: your fatigue is not physical. It's spiritual rebellion. Your soul is revolting, not with violence, but with silence. It's withdrawing from a life that betrays it every day. You're not burnt out. You're buried alive. Think back. Remember that moment when you stopped expressing what you truly felt, when you shut your mouth instead of speaking your mind, that moment when you laughed along with the group, even though you disagreed. Every time you did that, a part of you died. And now all those little deaths have caught up with you. This isn't about motivation. This isn't about working harder or finding balance. This is about reclaiming the parts of you you've disowned. Because until you do, you will carry a fatigue that sleep can't fix. Let me give you a glimpse of the machinery behind this. Since childhood, you were programmed. Praise for being good. Punishment for being wild. Love, conditional. Freedom, earned. You became an actor. You said the right lines. You smiled on cue. You gave up authenticity for acceptance. But that trade comes with a cost. And now you're paying it in sleepless nights, quiet panic, and a soul that whispers, there has to be more. Jung called this the return of the repressed. Everything you push down, it doesn't disappear. It waits. It festers. And one day, it returns. Not as a monster under the bed, but as depression, addiction, sabotage, or worse. Apathy. You start to say things like, I don't feel like myself. I don't know what I want anymore. I'm just tired. No, you're not tired. You're unfinished. The tragedy isn't that you're broken, it's that you were never allowed to become whole. And let me show you how deep this goes. There's a story about a boy who was loud, wild, full of fire. He asked too many questions. He climbed too high. He scared the adults, so they shamed him. They told him he was too much. He learned to shrink. To smile. To obey. He became a man people liked. But he never liked himself. He did everything right. Got the job, the house, the respect. But every night he stared at the ceiling and felt nothing. You are that boy. Or you were. Until today, because now you know your tiredness isn't laziness. It's a soul screaming for reunion. Reunion with truth, with danger, with the parts of you they tried to erase. And that is the beginning, not the end. Because when you finally face the part of you that's been banished, You don't just heal, you evolve. But that's not easy. Because the shadow doesn't speak softly. It growls. It demands. It exposes. And if you're not ready, it will tear you apart. But if you are, it will make you unstoppable. Are you ready to meet the part of you they said must never exist? Because once you open that door, there's no turning back. And in a moment, you'll understand exactly what it costs to ignore your shadow and what you gain when you finally let it speak. The next part isn't just a continuation, it's a confrontation. Are you prepared? The moment you begin to listen to your shadow, you will feel fear. Not because it's evil, but because it's honest. It doesn't care about what's polite. It doesn't care about what's acceptable. Tells you things you've spent your whole life avoiding. Like, you're not living your life. You're living someone else's script. Let that sink in. Your exhaustion is the tax you pay for denying your truth. You've been trying to succeed in a world that rewards masks, not souls. But no matter how well you play the part, deep down, you know, you were made for something more than survival. That haunting emptiness you feel after a win, that sick feeling after doing what everyone said was smart, that's the betrayal. That's the moment your soul whispers, this isn't it. But how do you break out? How? Do you stop running from yourself? You confront the very thing they told you to hide. Your shadow. The part of you that wants power, that craves freedom, that resents weakness, that sometimes wants to destroy what you built just to feel alive again. That part of you is not your enemy. It is your buried strength. Carl Jung didn't say, ignore the darkness. He said, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. And once you make it conscious, you take back your energy. Your exhaustion starts to evaporate, because now you're no longer fighting yourself. But don't think this will be easy, because the moment you break the spell, the world turns on you. They will call you selfish, arrogant, cold, rebellious. Why? Because you're no longer convenient. You'll start saying no to things that drain you. You'll walk away from roles that suffocate you. You'll start asking dangerous questions. Why am I doing this? Who told me this was success? Who benefits from my silence? And the system does not like that. You see, fatigue isn't just personal. It's political. It's spiritual. It's the direct result of being plugged into a machine that feeds off your disconnection from yourself. Let me show you. Why do so many of the strongest people you know feel the weakest? Because their strength was never meant to serve them. It was weaponized. They were told to work harder, not for freedom, but for validation. They were told to be reliable, but only if it helped someone else climb. They were told to be calm, so no one else had to face their own chaos. That's slavery, dressed up as self-discipline. And that's why Jung said, the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. If you never questioned your blueprint, you're not living your life. You're repeating someone else's failure. The fatigue is the echo of all the yes you gave when you wanted to scream no. It's the weight of being everyone's answer, except your own. But here's where the story turns. Somewhere inside you is a fire that never died. Maybe it flickered. Maybe it was buried under years of people-pleasing, overthinking, and perfectionism. But it's still there. And once you light it again, you stop apologizing for wanting more. You stop shrinking to fit inside conversations that drain you. You stop pretending to be okay with average. You stop bowing to systems that rely on your exhaustion. This is not about becoming aggressive. It's about becoming so whole that no one can use your brokenness against you again. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who lived every day by the book. Respected, polite, checked all the boxes. But at night, he had a recurring dream. He was in a forest, naked, wild, running through the trees. He felt alive, powerful, free. But every time he tried to stay in the dream, he'd wake up in a cold sweat, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. For years he ignored it. He told himself it was just stress, just nonsense. Until one day, he snapped. He quit the job, left the relationship, moved to a place where no one knew his name, and there, in the quiet, in the dark, he met the man he was always meant to become. Not perfect, but present. Not liked, but alive. You are that man. Or you can be. If you stop running from the dream, but it takes courage. Because the path of self-reclamation isn't romantic, it's brutal. You'll have to say goodbye to people who only loved your silence. You'll have to lose the comfort of being understood in order to truly be seen. And yes, you will be alone at first, but that loneliness, it's sacred, because it's the only place you can hear your real voice again. The one that says, I'm not here to be liked, I'm here to live fully, ferociously, without apology. That is the voice they tried to erase. That is the voice your fatigue has been protecting all this time. Because until now, you weren't ready to hear it. But you are now. Your tiredness was never weakness. It was the soul's alarm system. And the fact that you're still watching this, it means the fire is still there. Flickering. Waiting. Now, we go even deeper. Because in the next phase, you'll discover exactly what happens when you stop obeying and start becoming. The mask falls. The shadow rises. And everything begins to burn. The moment you stop obeying, everything around you starts to shake. It feels like betrayal, because it is, not of others, but of the lie you've been loyal to, that old identity. The quiet, reliable, agreeable version of you. The one that smiled while dying inside. The one that achieved, but never arrived. The one that played small so others could feel big. You're not just tired, you're soul sick from dragging around a dead version of yourself. But here's the forbidden truth no one told you. The healing won't feel like healing. Not at first. It feels like war. Because it is a war against everything that was built on your submission. You're not exhausted because you're weak. You're exhausted because your changing metamorphosis looks like madness from the outside. And you will be misunderstood. You'll say, I need space. And they'll call you distant. You'll say, I can't do this anymore. And they'll say you're selfish. You'll speak your truth. And they'll call you ungrateful. Don't fall for it. That's the system defending itself. Your exhaustion was the glue holding their illusion together. And now that you're cracking it open, they're scared. Because you're starting to see what's real. And what's real is this. You were never meant to be a cog. You were meant to be a creator. Not a perfect machine, but a conscious force. And when you start living from that place, everything changes. You stop asking permission. You stop performing. You stop grinding for a life that doesn't even fit you. Carl Jung knew this. Truth well, he said. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That tiredness you feel, that's fate starting to unravel. Because the moment you become conscious, the spell breaks. You realize you don't hate your life. You hate the version of yourself that was manufactured by fear, fear of disappointing others, fear of failure, fear of your own power. But now, you're stepping into the fire. And here's what no one tells you. The fire doesn't just burn what you are not. It reveals what you are. And what you are is dangerous. Not dangerous in a violent way. Dangerous because you can no longer be manipulated, because your energy is no longer up for auction, because your no now means something. This is where the transformation truly begins. You stop negotiating with your potential. You stop trying to be palatable. You stop managing people's perception of you. And when that happens, you will scare the ones who only loved your weakness. Let them be scared, because you were never meant to be understood by those who profit from your confusion. You were never meant to be tamed by the opinions of the mediocre, and you were never meant to apologize for your edge. That edge is your gift. And I know you've dulled it. You've sanded it down to keep the peace. To stay in rooms that made you question your worth. But no more. This next version of you, the one being forged in the silence and fatigue, is not here to fit in. They're here to lead. To disrupt. To dominate. Not others, but the parts of yourself that used to beg for scraps. You've been the prey long enough. Now, you are the strategist. You watch with different eyes. You listen not to agree, but to understand. You act not from reaction, but from power. This is what real transformation looks like. Not loud, not flashy, but quiet, controlled, calculated, And it starts to show in the smallest places. You don't over-explain, you don't chase. You don't need to be liked to feel valid. That's not arrogance. That's mastery. Because you finally realized your energy is currency, and for years you've been broke, not from lack of work, but from lack of alignment. Now you spend your energy like a king, only where it multiplies, only where it builds, only where your soul says yes. And here's the most sacred part of it all. When you live this way, the fatigue turns into fire. You don't wake up dreading the day. You wake up summoned, driven by something deeper than ambition. A purpose that doesn't care about applause, only impact. But beware, not everyone will follow you here. Some will beg you to go back. To be softer, quieter, smaller. To be tired again. But you've already seen too much. You've already felt the difference. And you can't go back to sleep. This is the path of kings. Of warriors. Of the ones who burn down the illusion and rise from the ash. Not as saviors, but as sovereigns. And now you know you were never tired from doing too much. You were tired from being too little of yourself. That ends today. In the next breath we go deeper still. Not just into power, but into peace. Because once the war inside ends, what rises next is beyond dominance. It is destiny. You've wandered through the fog long enough. You've worn masks so well they almost fused to your skin. Smiled when you wanted to scream, said, "I'm fine," while breaking inside. But not anymore. Because now, you see. And once you see, you cannot unsee it. You're not tired because you failed. You're tired because you pretended for too long. You performed for applause you didn't believe in. You achieved goals that weren't even yours. You followed maps to places that never felt like home. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But no one tells you the price of that privilege. The isolation. The nights that feel endless. The internal earthquakes that shatter everything you thought was you. Because to become who you truly are, you must first destroy who you were trained to be. That's what this journey has been. Not burnout, rebirth. You were molting the false self. The one that was obedient. The one that said yes when you meant no. The one that chased validation like a starving child, and every step into your truth felt like a step away from love. Because the world only loved you when you betrayed yourself. So you learned to love the pain. Not because you're broken, but because pain was the only honest voice left in the room. But now you hear a different voice. Not the loud scream of exhaustion. Not the anxious whisper of shame, but something older, deeper, truer. The voice of yourself. Not your ego. Not your programming, but the raw, untamed intelligence of your soul. And that voice doesn't be it doesn't people dash please it doesn't collapse just to be liked it speaks once. Clearly. And expects you to listen. Because it knows. You are not here to be liked. You are here to be reeled at no more. Compromising no more apologizing for your power no more dimming your fire to keep others warm. This world has too many hollow men and obedient ghosts. It doesn't need another copy. It needs you. Fully, fiercely, finally. You are no longer the echo of someone else's dream. You are the dreamer and the storm and the light they tried to bury. Because here's the final forbidden truth. Tiredness isn't the enemy. It was the message. The smoke before the fire. The glitch in the matrix. The whisper from your unconscious. Wake up. And you did. Now, you walk with different gravity. You don't rush anymore. You don't chase anything. Because nothing owns you. Not the past. Not their opinions. Not your old fears. You've crossed the line. From the self that obeys to the self that rules. You no longer ask, "Am I enough?" You say, "I am." And that's the end of it. And when they doubt you, when they try to drag you back into roles you've outgrown, you won't scream. You'll smile. Not out of arrogance, out of understanding. Because you've tasted something they haven't. Freedom. And freedom isn't wild. It's not reckless. It's precise. You speak less. You move sharper. You only enter rooms where your soul stays intact. Because now you know, energy is expensive, and you've spent too much of it surviving. Now, you build. Not just money, not just success. You build peace, the kind of peace that can't be bought, the kind that doesn't flinch, the kind that lives in men who've seen hell and made it their throne. And that peace, it's magnetic. It draws allies you never expected. It repels parasites you never noticed. It clears the noise. Because your life isn't about performing anymore, it's about presence, and no more overthinking, and no more apologizing for your boundaries, and no more pretending to be confused when your soul already knows. You know? And in this knowing, you are dangerous. You are free. You are alive. Not surviving, leading. Let the world watch. Let them misunderstand. Let them whisper, you're not here to be understood, you're here to become undeniable. This is the end of fatigue and the beginning of fire. The old you is gone, and what's rising now doesn't beg for love. It commands respect. And one day, they'll ask, what changed? You'll look them in the eyes and say, I finally listened to the silence. Now it's your turn. Stand up, breathe deep, reclaim your fire. Because you're not just tired, you're awakening, and no one, not the world, not the past, not even your own fear, can stop what happens next. You've been waiting to feel ready. But kings aren't crowned in comfort. They're born in chaos. This was never about rest. This was about resurrection. Final call to action. If this woke something in you, don't let it die in silence. Fire comment below. I'm done pretending. Bell hit subscribe. Movie camera watch the next video because the transformation is just beginning. And remember, they trained you to be tired, but now you are dangerous. Let them feel it. Let them know you've returned to yourself. And nothing is more powerful than a soul that refuses to be caged.